This is someone needs to maybe give a call to Mansoor and Ismail and see where they're at. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome. Yeah, it's a small group. It's fine. I don't mind a small group. Small things can become big things in time. This activity has just recently just been sort of, unfortunately, perhaps we should have before Ramadan gone ahead and prepared ourselves maybe to advertise and inform about such an event as is our version of a qiyam al-layl, and it was given the title Tanwir al-Qulub, the idea of Tanwir is from the idea of nawwara, to illumine, to cause something to become illuminated or with light. And these last, this being the 21st night of the month of Ramadan, according to our witnessing of the crescent. Alhamdulillah, we were very fortunate. In the last month at my house, we all gathered, all the students gathered at my house, and we memorized the dua that is recited upon seeing the crescent, and about 10 to 15 of us were there one day. So I went out looking for the crescent, and we saw the crescent. So I reiterate that we should be grateful to Allah that perhaps it was the fact that we all intended to just recite a dua and to speak to the moon as the Prophet ﷺ did. Perhaps this is the reason why Allah gave us the opportunity of being the only confirmed visual moon sighting in the United States. So, alhamdulillah, that's a great ni'mah of Allah. Just to be able to have said that dua upon seeing the crescent for the month of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, any ihya sunnah, reviving the sunnah of the Prophet as has been narrated in one narration. Man, I'm forgetting how deep it goes there. There's different ones. My mind's swimming around. Man ihya sunnati faqad ahyani. He who gives life to a sunnah has given life to me, as one narration is. So all of us have to be mindful of trying to enliven the Messenger of Allah in our lives. And particularly these last 10 nights of Ramadan are very significant, and we will go through that. But before we do that, as mentioned by Sayyid Yusuf, the idea which is important for us to be mindful of is the idea of our jama'ah, our community. And I am not tired of reminding us all here that we are all in our own capacities trying to acquire sacred knowledge, and this sacred knowledge is a prophetic legacy. We must be mindful of it as a prophetic legacy, that we have been honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come together and to just acquire some knowledge. So if this qiyam al-layl part of it is that you get something, you learn something, and you're able to practice it, then you are one of a number of people who are cooperatively working together. We are helping each other to bir and taqwa in this way. We are helping each other, assisting each other to attain to all aspects of proper decorum and obedience to Allah. This is called bir, and taqwa, acts of obedience, reverence and awe and amazement with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then a little bit of knowledge that you get even tonight, you'll probably be hearing some things tonight that you may have not heard before, which is cool, and then you should make a note of it and then remember it. If it's just something specific for Ramadan or the last 10 nights of Ramadan, then make a note of it and next year implement it. And that's what it's all about. And this is the idea of making ourselves consciously aware that we are prophetic inheritors in our own capacities, and we all are a part of a community trying to enliven and engender within ourselves prophetic qualities. And this should be an objective of our life, as much as we individually can, outwardly and inwardly, zahiran, batinan, acquire prophetic qualities. And sometimes it's like, it's simply, if you really want it, it's like making turşu, something, and you pickle something. You pickle it, and if you keep something, if you keep those olives which are bitter. We're all like olives. Olives are Quranic paradisial fruit, but they have a relationship with people in one way, and that they're bitter. They have a bitterness in the dunya. And you have to crack the olive and you have to put it in the salt in order to extract all the bitterness so it becomes something edible. But in the process of becoming something edible, it also becomes something preserved. And so we're all wanting to crack ourselves, to open ourselves up to Allah. The idea of your fitrah. Fatara, Allah, Fatara, Samawat, Allah, that He split it. He split the heavens and the earth. It's the idea of a seed that splits the ground when it comes forth. So for the seed to come forth, it has to split the ground. And Allah has separated things in the creation of the universe. Cosmology tells us, things are in that way of being separated and opened up. We're on that path right now. We've done enough of that. But the idea that we all need to be sort of broken, and our hearts need to become broken. And if our hearts become broken, they can become filled up then with divine blessings and qualities of goodness. And then we can start. Then we become pickled in them, and then we become something new. We become something new. So we all should want this. And so the idea of taking sacred knowledge, which is something of light, as Imam Shafi mentioned one of his teachers, that he informed him that وَأَخْبَرَنِي أَنَّ إِلْمْ نُورًا. He informed me that knowledge is light. So this is something we have to keep in mind, is that knowledge is light. It allows us to discern things, give us a furqan, a criterion, a discernment. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that. Hopefully tonight is a little bit of that. We also have the idea that, most of you are on our mailing list, are on a list, but if you're not, we request you, if you are interested, to put your name on a list, not because we're going to sell you anything, but we would like to have a post-Ramadan get-together where we can actually be out in the sun, maybe if it's not too hot, eat something, and drink together and share and have fellowship in that way, and maybe speak more about the idea of community here in Houston, seeing ourselves as a very special set of people in Houston, as the Muslim community should see itself. Unfortunately, the larger Muslim community doesn't see itself oftentimes as being very unique or special, but we should see ourselves that way. Okay, well, what I want to do is I want to, on the handout you had, so to go to that, there is a page after this, the issue of taking note. Note taking is really important. Sometimes I have conditioned whether I will give a public lecture or not is really 10 or more people have brought notepads with them. If they don't bring them, I won't give a talk. Even if I did once in North Carolina, I made it quite clear that if I didn't get at least 10 people notepads, I will not speak, even though you bought me an airplane ticket to come here. Because what's my purpose of speaking there, except that you take notes? I don't necessarily buy into just recording things. I think that you have to be more engaged in this activity of knowledge. We were that way in Turkey, and so I feel it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander too. I have this section I put here for you, the last 10 days of Ramadan, and that's from Ibn Rajab's book that he wrote. It's a very nice book. If you can get the Ta'if al-Ma'arif, Fima, I can't read that. Fima Liwasim Am min Wada'if. So it's his book of subtleties of knowledge, of the things that one should know to practice in the mawsim and the seasons of the year, i.e. the months of the Islamic calendar. I really harp on about that a lot. The Islamic calendar is the derelict calendar. It's been neglected by the Ummah, by so many. Most of the Ummah don't even care anymore about the Islamic calendar, except for Eids and when Ramadan starts. You know, that's it. All the other the months of the Islamic calendar, which are the months of Allah, and they are the months of Allah. And Muhammad ﷺ restored this calendar to us. The months of Allah have been restored to us, and these months 4 are sacrosanct. The Ashur al-Hurum, the months that are sacred, and we need to restore this calendar system to the Ummah. That's why we actually go out and look for the moon, and we are moonsiders by fitral disposition and by prophetic emulation. And I don't have any problem with calculating. There's something special to say to the moon, Rabbi Rabbuk Allah. You can look at the moon and speak to it and say, my Lord and your Lord is Allah. You cannot get that from a calendar. And if Ian was just to revive that dua in the Ummah, just to get that dua back, to speak to the moon, to speak to a celestial body, as he did, and he was not a madman, he was not Majnoon. Why did he speak to the moon? You won't ever get that by looking at a calendar. And we need that connectedness with nature. This is the realm, it's the alam, it's the place of divine alamat, divine signs. And most contemporary people in the West are disconnected, many of them, from nature, or they feel themselves this. And I got a phone call. I don't know idea where it is. That's my phone. Just turn it off, unless it's my wife calling. Good luck. It's right there. Is it in there? Being in to restore a connectivity to the larger realm that we are enmeshed within, we are part and parcel of, in which our food and drink and our physical sustenance and provision is by the permission of Allah given. Part of it is to be aware of the celestial events occurring above us, and one of the most important of those is the cycling of the moon, its orbit. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remind us of that, so at least we can go out and every month speak to the moon. Yeah. Don't worry about it. If it calls again, you can it's over there somewhere, you know, it's not like it's someplace over there. So I went through there's a section here on the discussion of Ramadan, Majlis al-Rabi'a, the 4th point sitting or lesson, في ذكر عشر أواخر من Ramadan, in the remembrance or reflections, the reflection of the last 10, that's the last 10 days of Ramadan. And so I just want to go through some of the hadith and these topical points. So the topical points here that he brings up are these 5: awakening one's household to engage in worship, avoiding relations with spouses, that's a specific thing, delaying one's iftar until the time of sahar, taking a full body bath between Maghrib and Isha, and seclusion in the masjid. Interesting points there. I think a couple of those, especially taking a full body bath between Maghrib and Isha, is a lot of you hadn't known that was a sunnah. Or the idea of delaying your iftar until the time of sahar. That is, you don't break your fast at Maghrib, you wait until the time. It's actually the sunnah in the last 10 days of Ramadan. So that's the idea of the continuous fast, Isal, this continuous fast. And so I just want to bring these points up. So I'm not bringing them up. Ibn Rajab is bringing them up, rahimahullah ta'ala. So he mentions here from our mother, Sayyidina Aisha anha, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا دخل عشر شد مئزره وأحيا ليله وأيقظ أهله. The Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, when the 10 entered, he would bind his girdle, mi'zar, okay? The word of the idea of a loincloth, your izar, okay? وَأَحْيَا لَيْلَ, and he would give life to the night. Give life to the night. That's a nice term, giving life to the night. Because it's a time of sleep. It's a time of darkness, of death. But you give life to it. وَأَيْكَذَ أَهْلَ, and to arouse or awaken the people of his household. May Allah be pleased with them all. So this is what our mother and Aisha said, that the Prophet ﷺ would do this. He would wake up the people, and Sayyidina Umar would, in his own family, he would say as-salah, as-salah. He would go around and saying prayer, prayer in his own home to arouse people, even the children, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this time. So that's a general, and I translated that there. I believe I translated that one there. That was narrated by, that was the narration from Sahih Bukhari. Imam Muslim also narrates from our mother, كان رسول الله يجتهد في عشر أواخر ما لا يجتهد في غيره. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would make effort, يجتهد, would make juhd, effort, in the last 10. ما لا يجتهد في غيره, in an effort that he would not give in other times. So he gave more effort. That is, he was much more devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He displayed acts of devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with greater amount at this time. So that should be a reminder. There must be something there for us. If he did this of himself, and of course his reasoning for his approach towards greater devotion may not be our reasoning, by the way. For he knows Allah in a way that we don't know Allah, and he fears Allah in a way we don't fear Allah. And he's forgiven of any misstep that may have occurred to him, unlike the rest of us. As he mentioned in a hadith, Imam Rajab mentions here about people, one of the worst things that can happen is that if in the Ramadan you're not forgiven of your sin. If you pass Ramadan and you're not forgiven of your sin, in a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was, which is narrated by Ibn Hibban in his Sahih from Abu Hurairah, when the Prophet ﷺ ascended his minbar once, and he said Ameen 3 times, and he was asked, why did you say Ameen? And the first reason that he said Ameen was that the person who adraka Ramadan, that he meets Ramadan, he attains to Ramadan, but he doesn't get forgiven in Ramadan. So you caught Ramadan, you had 30 or 29 days, first 10 days of mercy, middle 10 days of forgiveness, the last 10 or 9 days of itq min al-nar, from freedom from the fire, right? And you still didn't get forgiven? And so when Jibreel had said this to the Prophet ﷺ, that, so he was on his minbar and Jibreel was present there, and Jibreel said, Ya Muhammad ﷺ, a person of your ummah who doesn't, this is the paraphrase of it, who doesn't get forgiven at the end of Ramadan, then let him find his place in hell and be distant from God, and say Ameen to this. And he said, so I said Ameen. That's a scary hadith. And it's a hadith that reminds us that رُبَّ صَائِمْ حَظَّهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ جَوَ عَطَشٍ, that there are many people who fast, but all they get from their fasting is hunger and thirst. Now if you just want to talk about fasting, as one of its purposes is to reduce your shahwa, your physical passions, well then cutting back on food and drink is definitely one way of doing that. But remember that that may be a consideration of what the fasting is about, but it surely can't just be about that. So you don't want to just get this minimal fast where all you do is cut back on your hunger. You got hungry and thirsty, but you backbite people and you lie and you waste your time in Ramadan and do things you shouldn't be doing. And so all the hasanat you're accruing are being eaten up by the sayyi'at that you're also accruing. And so it's, you know, your overall net result is always in the red, and then you end up being unforgiven. So be mindful of that. That should make you worry. Am I going to be forgiven at the end of this Ramadan? Even it begins with mercy, and its middle part, its kernel, and its essence, its lub. The middle part of its lub is maghfirah. Be mindful of that. So, it's also mentioned here by ulama, and I want to make this point here. Well, maybe you can't spend the whole, every night from Maghrib until sunrise, Tulu Shams, every last 10 nights in this. You go to work, you gotta go to work the next morning. What are you going to do? You gotta be at school, you got a class. You know, you're not making i'tikaf, which is one point I should, on point number 5. You're not making i'tikaf. Where ulama have talked about this issue here. Okay? كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, Sayyidina Aisha said, يصوم شعبان كله كان يصوم شعبان إلا قليلا. He would fast all of it, and some of it he would hold back. The point of that being, and I'll bring up and I'll extrapolate on it as I turn the page here, in which she also said, ما علمه صلى الله عليه وسلم قام ليلة حتى الصباح. I didn't know of the Prophet ﷺ that he would spend the whole night until Fajr time in prayer. He would sleep some. So, Ihya al-Layl, that is giving life to the night, or qiyam al-Layl. Don't think of Layl as being the whole night. It's the idea where if a part of something is done, then the whole is considered. For example, in Hanafi fiqh, if you do ru's, that is fourth of your head in wiping your head, which is the minimum, the whole head is considered wiped then, for the mas of wiping the head, for example. A part of it is. Or for in the Shafi position, one hair, which is a part of the whole head, if it is touched, then the whole head is considered to have been legally wiped, even though you only did a part of it. So this idea of if a part is done, then the whole is included, is a legal understanding within the tradition. So Imam Malik in his Muwatta, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, بَلَغَنِي أَنَّ Ibn Musayyib, it came to me a report of Ibn Musayyib qala, he said, من شهد عشاء ليلة القدر يعني في جماعة فقد أخذ بحظه منها. He who witnessed the night prayer on the night of Laylatul Qadr, you were in the masjid, and yani, remember that? In the jama'ah, you were in the jama'ah praying in the masjid on maybe one of the last 10 nights of Ramadan, and it was night of Qadr, then you will get the reward of catching Laylatul Qadr, even though you only pray Isha with Jama'ah. So this is a position. Ibn Musayyib was one of the important Salaf scholars that preceded Imam Malik. And so Imam Malik has this in his Muwatta. So Imam Shafi had also mentioned something similar himself, by the way. He mentions here, Ibn Rajab mentions this. So what we want to understand then is that you may not be able to spend the whole night up, but at least then try to get to the masjid minimally and pray your Salatu Isha with the Jama'ah in your Taraweeh. Even just catching your Isha, if you couldn't even stay for the Taraweeh, then at least do that. Try to catch it. With this intention that at least I'm there, I'm doing the best I can. It's still the night, it may be the night of Laylatul Qadr in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, and alhamdulillah, I made that intention. That in itself is a saving grace for you. And you have legal precedent for that mindset, by the way. Remember, Allah does not get tired of you until you get tired of Him. So if you're worshiping Allah, and it's 1:30 and you're behind the Imam going on, and your feet are hurting, and your legs are hurting, and you're telling yourself in your heart, this is just too hard for me, I can't do this. That's the time when Allah doesn't need you. Allah doesn't need you worshiping, because you're not needing Allah at that moment either. You're needing some rest. You need to sit down. That's what you need at that moment. So be honest with yourself about that. Oh, but you can say, but Naeem, about those stories of people who would pray with arrows stuck in their bodies, I know those stories that we can read about. Yes. Those, when you read these manaqib, these biographical works of pious people of the past, and when you read them, you can actually start counting out the millions of Muslims that were. You only got the names of a few of them, by the way, who are that way. Don't make them, these exceptional people, your standard all the time, because you may never meet that standard, and you just depress yourself at the end of the day. So remind yourself, when you read these stories of the great ulama, or the great awliyaullah, or some of the great tabi'een, or even sahaba who did things, and you're like, and you just never meet it. If you're trying to meet the benchmark of their practices, when even the Rasul would sleep, as our mother said, I never knew of him that he would pray the whole night until Fajr. If he himself didn't do that, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you can't top him when it comes to worshipfulness, then take a clue from him. And I'm not saying you shouldn't maybe try these things occasionally. I think it will be good to try to fast, keep your fast tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. Don't break your fast, and try to keep your fast until Sahar, just to say you did that one sunnah. Of course it might really wear you out, but at least you did it. But to do it consistently, this is a different issue. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up. It's been narrated in a hadith that is marfu' from Abu Huraira. It has weaknesses to it, but it's still cited here by Ibn Rajab. Man salla isha al-akhirah fi jama'atin fi Ramadan. He who prays Isha in the last 10 nights in Jama'at in Ramadan, faqad adraka laylatul. He has indeed acquired the night of Qadr. So this narrated by Sheikh Asbahani. But he mentions here this narration from Abu Huraira on this point. Though it's not a strong narration, it's one which is cited there as giving more of this support for the idea that if you can't get the whole, then get part of it. If you can't get the whole, then get part of it. In this last 10 nights of Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. That was the first point I wanted to mention. After that then, of these things of the Prophet that were unique about these last 10 nights, and the Nabi كان يؤخذ أهله للصلاة في ليال العشر. He would wake his family in the last 10 nights. He went to Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidatina Fatima, may Allah be pleased with them both, and he went to them in the night and he would say, Ala tuqumani wa tusalliyani. Are you not both getting up and offering prayers, both of you? So he encouraged his son-in-law and his beloved daughter to get up at night and offer prayers. Narrated from Umar ibn Khattab that he would حتى إذا كان نصف الليل أيقظ أهله للصلاة, that it was the last half of the night had passed, he would wake his family and he would say as-salah, as-salah, then he would recite وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاسْتَغْبِرْ عَلَيْهَا, and he would quote the verse of the Quran from Surah Al-Taha, verse 132, and command unto your family the prayer and incite unto them steadfastness in it. That they seek sabr, they seek steadfastness by means of the prayer. Command your family to the prayer. So he would go and say as-salah, as-salah, and then recite this verse amongst his family to get them to wake up. And even the kids would wake up and offer their prayers. SubhanAllah. The poet mentions here that there was that the wife of Habib Abi Muhammad al-Farisi, he was a companion of Hasan al-Basri, and he was one of the people whose dua were accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يعني كان مجاب الدعوة, يعني this is how he was known as a historical figure, was a man whose dua were accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is Habib Abi Muhammad, this companion of Hasan al-Basri, that he would say at night time, قَدْ ذَهَبَ اللَّيْلُ وَبَيْنَ أَيْدِينَا طَرِيقٌ بَعِيدٌ وَزَادْنَا قَلِيلٌ. He would say this to himself, indeed the night is come, and between and in front of us is a long path. بَيْنَ يَدَيْنَا, in front of us is a distant long path. We've got a long road ahead of us, but our provision is little. وَكَوَافِلُ الصَّالِحِينَ قَدْ صَارَتْ قُدَامَنَا, and then وَنَحْنُ قَدْ بَقَيْنَا, and then he will continue, and the caravan of the righteous people have preceded us. The caravan of the righteous people have preceded us, and we've been left behind. So he's talking about the Sahaba. It's a beautiful statement. And then this bit of poetry is mentioned here. Ya na'iman bil-layli kam tarqud, kum ya habibi kad dana ma'id, wa khudh min layli wa awqatihi wirdan idha ma haja'a ruqad. Man nama hatta yanqadiya layluhu lam yablughi manzila aw yajhad. Qul lidhawi al-albabi ahl tuqa قَنْطَرَةُ الْأَرْضِ لَكُمْ مَعِدٌ. The poet said, O you who is asleep, ya na'im, O you who is asleep at night, how much more will you tarqud, how much more will you allow yourself to be in your slumber? How much more will you allow yourself to be in your slumber? Qum, get up, ya habibi, my beloved. Qadana ma'id, because the ma'id, the promise of Allah, is coming near. That is what? Death or qiyam are coming towards you, are always coming toward you. Dana, they're coming closer. وَخُذْ مِنْ لَيْلَ وَأَقَوْتِهَا, and take of the night and of its hours wirdan, as a wird, as a litany, an activity of engagement. إِذَا مَا هَجَأَ رُقَدْ, at this time, because there is no for there should be no peace or comfort in sleep. And sleep is, is your minor death. Dead men don't acquire much good deeds. Man nama hatta yanqadiya laylu, and the person who sleeps until all the night has passed, lam yablugh manzil aw yajhad. He is the person who doesn't attain to the manzil, the high station. And he is the person. So I said, therefore, let there be effort. Let there be effort. Qul, say to the albab, say to the people who are albab, the people of hearts of knowledge. That's the plural of lub, albab, ahl tuqa, the people of piety. Qantaratul ardi lakum ma'idun. The idea of there is something, a precious thing, a precious treasure of great value is promised to you. That is, if you get up at nighttime, if you're a person of piety, and you get up at night and you worship Allah, you are going to get a great treasure from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a hazina for you. Okay? So we must be mindful of this. It's beautiful how people of the past wrote poetry on these things even. To write poetry about, to incite them to these things. Who writes poetry today about getting up for tahajjud? Like someone's got a soft drink over there. So that's the first thing. Wake up your family. Get them moving. Throw water on their face, which is a sunnah. Get you in trouble. You messed up the bed. How am I going to clean that now? Of them, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mizara. This is one where the idea of binding or tightening his girdle or his izar. This, most scholars have mentioned very briefly, is that it's a time when if you're married, you're single for the last 10 nights of Ramadan. You're going back to your days of bachelorette, being a bachelor. Because this is your time for Allah. As-sawm li wa ajli bihi. Fasting is my, and I reward for it. So the idea of the whole of this month is for Allah, but particularly these last 10 nights. Especially if you're waiting for an angel to come and angels to come down upon you, you want to be in a wonderful state when the angels find you. So abstain from your base physicality and devote yourself to Allah. And of the things that he did, تَأْخِيرُهُ لِلْفُطُورِ إِلَى سَحْرٍ, is that he would delay his iftar until the time of Sahar. It's been narrated this from Sayyidina Aisha and Anas bin Malik. إذا كان رمضان قام ونام وذاق عشاء شد الوزاء واجتنب النساء واتصل بين أذنين وجعل عشاء سحورا, and he would make the night his suhoor. So the things that he mentioned is Aisha, and he would make the night the time of suhoor, not maghrib. He would delay it. And so scholars have discussed this, and the point is this idea of that isal, the idea of an extended fast. But we can't have a perpetual fast as people in the Ummah, because Allah SWT doesn't give us provision in a unique way as He gave it to the Messenger of Allah SAW. So for us then, what the best we can get is these last 10 nights of Ramadan is we fast 24 hours and have one eating and one drinking, and that's the time of Suhoor. And try it once. Maybe tomorrow, try it if you can, and see how it goes, and make the intention, I want to revive this sunnah. If I can just do it one night, I did my part of reviving a sunnah. So that's my advice to you, if you can do that. So without going into that, I have to sort of keep the schedule, so I'm sort of looking here back and forth. Don't want to bore you all, because we're going to have some qasa'id here. So where are Ismail and company before we take off here when I finish? The other thing is, on these last 10 nights, is that he did is iktisalahu bayna isha'ain, that he would take a ghusl between the two ishas, between Maghrib and Isha. Why did he do that? Well, it was simply a thing because this is a time, this is like when you make it a full body bath for an Eid prayer as a sunnah, or a full body bath for Jum'ah, is that this is a time of, you're looking for Laylatul Qadr, the most significant night of the year. It's like an Eid for you. If you get it, you get a lifetime's worth of good deeds. You get sins forgiven. That's a big thing. So why are you coming to it in boxer shorts and a t-shirt? You should come to it in a beautiful clothing, a beautiful apparel, perfuming yourself, standing for Allah as you would stand before. If you're invited to the White House, you wouldn't go you'd go dressed up. I probably wouldn't, but I'm me. But most of us, we have a sort of a protocol of how we want to dress in that situation. So you should be this way when you are that way, and this night of Ramadan, these last nights of Ramadan. So if you're a man, cover your head in your prayer, wear put a turban on, even wrap a turban just to get the ajr of that, because your prayer is better that way. In Hanafi fiqh, the clothing of a man, the sunnah clothing is to have a turban, and izar, and the thobe. That is the sunnah according to Hanafi ulama, the best clothing for a man. Women are different because of the hijab is different, so that that's pretty much been defined for them. But for men, you should at least cover your head. It's a shameful thing that we've lost this sense of Islamic manliness. And even rednecks, if you want to call them that, wear baseball caps. I was at the mall. Those are popular places, these cap shops, man. If we had like a turban shop or a taqiyya shop, it would go out of business. No one's going to buy one of those things, except for a wedding. And, at one of our South Asian weddings, wear those funky turbans with diamonds in them. And you also could serve tea at a hotel in Bombay, or be a doorman. So you want to make these nights beautiful. Perfume yourself. Perfume your prayer mat. Burn incense. Keep your clothes looking. And just for the tension, just for this niyat, that you are there in order to glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and come to Him. Khudu zinatukum inda kulli masjid, as Allah says, and take of the beautification of yourselves at every place of prostration. It's very sad that Muslims, so many Muslims especially, don't have this idea of beautifying themselves for prayer. And it's just a prayer, Allah Akbar, let's just do it. May Allah give us the tawfiq to beautify ourselves. As we beautify, if we make that intention, we can only have the expectation Allah will beautify us also. And then the last thing he mentions here, Ibn Rajab, is i'tikaf. That is, where you set a time aside for Allah, for Allah. Sayyidina Aisha narrates again, and the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam kana ya'takifu 'ashr awakhir min Ramadan hatta tawaffahu Allah ta'ala. That he sallallahu would make i'tikaf in the last 10 of Ramadan until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took his soul. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. كان الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يعتكف في كل رمضان 10 أيام فلما كان عام الذي قبض فيه اعتكف 20. That he ﷺ would make i'tikaf in the last 10 of Ramadan until the year in which Allah SWT took his soul, qubida, in which he was seized. That is, he tasted death, ﷺ, and he made i'tikaf for 20 nights. That was one of the signs that the Sahaba who were mindful knew that something was going to happen, was that he made 20 nights of i'tikaf, and he hadn't been doing that. So they knew, those who were perceptive knew something was going on, that this is probably going to be his last Ramadan with them. As for, I mentioned here things that you can do in Ramadan. I advise you to these things. 1, avoid unnecessary conversations, lying, backbiting. Hold your tongue. Be silent. Be silent. Right? What is the harvest of the tongues is what puts most people in hellfire. So guard your tongues in Ramadan. Don't talk about things you shouldn't be talking about. Either recite Quran, if you're at work, do your business, do your work, and minimize your conversation, get your job done, be a little bit, formal with people, and just focus. Don't let your words be just, like, don't make vomit come forth, because vomiting will obviate your fast. So the vomiting of excessive conversation. Don't backbite, don't lie, don't tellbear, don't do things like that. These things already are corrupting you in Ramadan and out of Ramadan, so be mindful of that. Avoid unnecessary activities. Cut off the TV, cut off the music, cut off the gaming, cut off visiting the mall, cut off all these things. That's why i'tikaf is, to seclude yourself from these things. So if you can't make i'tikaf, then at least have the intention. I wish I could have, but if I can't, let me get some of the qualities of a mu'takif person. What are those? I'm going to hold my tongue. I'm going to engage in Quran. I'm not going to be just always, just doing things I shouldn't be doing, like just spending. I got to shop and all that stuff. No, you don't have to do that. Go to work, come home, eat your iftar, come to the masjid, do worship Allah, go to sleep, and just focus on these things. This is 9 days. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? It'll be over with before you know it. Bam! Oh, we're already at the 21st night of Ramadan. Look, we just started, didn't it? It just started. We're already almost done with it. Number 3, reading Quran. Try to read the Quran as much as you can and make a khatam. And if you can't make a khatam and you can't, then read something and reflect on it. At least you can do that. Reflect on the Quran. It's better than a mindless recitation. Truly it is. Or read beneficial books on the religion and things that are sustaining you spiritually. I could add there, or find good conversation with like-minded Muslims that you can associate with and you can share and have sohbah with. It's so important. A person is on the deen of his brother. A person is on the deen of his brother, so that you choose your brothers and your intimate companion as well. Personal litanies, awrad. If you've got a weird, if you have a daily set of litanies that you do, like at morning time, at salat, after Salat al-Fajr, or at the time of Maghrib, then be consistent with them. Do them. If after every prayer you sit down for a few minutes and you just do some awrad of Subhanallah, or saying salawat on the Prophet, then be consistent with them. A little bit as consistent is better than a lot as inconsistent, is a well-known understanding in the tradition of Islam. If you can't do these things, acts of kindness, charity work, collecting, distributing zakat al-fitr, do things like that. Get out there and do something. A soup kitchen on the weekends, feeding the poor, giving people water. There are homeless people needing water these days. Even the thing is watering your grass. Make the intention, I'm watering the lawn. I'm watering the lawn today because the grass has right for water, and it's Ramadan, it's last days. I get reward for that even. Think about that. Something like that. I'm watering the lawn just because it's the last days of Ramadan and I'm going to get some ajr from Allah because these plants have a right upon me. You get rewarded with Allah for that. That little act may be what puts you in Jannah. If an act could put you in Jannah, that may be one of them. Otherwise, serve the community in some way. You can come to the masjid. I like going down there to people iftar, and rolling grape leaves and making biryani and doing chicken and all that, and you get tired of being creative in Ramadan, So these things, you can find things to do that are righteous, good deeds you can engage yourself in. As for some adhkar, I mentioned here very quickly the transliterations of them. Allahumma innaka afoon tub'afu fa'fu anni. This is very well known from Sayyidina Aisha. Oh Allah, indeed you are afoon, oh God, you are the one who pardons, you love to pardon me. This should be on your tongue a lot. Allahumma innaka afoon tub'afu fa'fu anni. Allahumma innaka afoon tub'afu fa'fu anni. Allahumma innaka afoon tub'afu fa'fu anni. Or this beautiful litany of the Sunnah of the Prophet, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, la ilaha akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-azim. Say this a lot. These two are very powerful adhkar, particularly the first one, in the days of Ramadan, in the nights of the last nights of Ramadan, to be saying that. Tonight I encourage you to be saying it, starting it tonight, every night be saying, Allahumma innaka afuwan tuhibbu afa fa'afu anni. And think of those words, Allahumma, Allah, innaka, you afuwan, you are afu. Right? Tuhibbu, you love. What do you love? Afwa, you love to pardoning. Fa'afu, pardon me. Fa'afu anni, pardon me. Think of the words. Allahumma innaka afuwan tuhibbu afa fa'afu anni. Think of the words. So these are some things I wanted to share with you. I don't know where everyone else is. Where's there they are. You guys ready to do the qasida? You guys ready? So that was my spiel. After we do the qasida, let's see what we got here. After we do the qasida, which is like a break, then we're gonna have some break. So this is like an entertainment break. Okay, it's not entertainment, the qasida is important. these qasa'id, these beautiful poems and reflections on the Prophet ﷺ. And you're going to have some time for some coffee back there or tea. Don't knock that table over. You have to clean up the mess. And then I'm going to read here. What I read at the Rihla program in Turkey this year. I'll do a little bit of reading on the story of the doves, Hikayetul Güvercin in Turkish, the Ottoman, from Süleyman Çelebi's Mawlid of the Prophet ﷺ. I'm going to read the Ottoman and translate it to you. It's a little story. It's a story. It's a cute little. It's not cute. It's a nice little story on the power of the Prophet ﷺ. And it's about a dove. And that's the Turkish word güvercin. So that's a quiz I'll offer you. It's a quiz tonight. What's the Turkish word for dove? Is güvercin. When you see how it's written in Ottoman, you don't know how it was an odd language how they wrote it, the way they wrote it. They have strange letters. So we ask Allah to give us tawfiq. Hope you got some notes from this. This is, if you're holding this book afterwards, if you want to see me afterwards, this is a really good book. If you know Arabic, buy this book. It's an excellent book. Every month of the Islamic calendar year is here. The virtues of it, what you can do in them, and it's amazing. So, inshallah, that's there. So we'll get Ismail and Mansour up here. Okay, you guys ready? Yeah. Thank you. Who got me that coffee here? Did you?
That was me.
You got sugar in it?